Look at the size of that thing!
David Paulides went into these woods alone, and he came out with footage of Bigfoot that is the most convincing ever captured. What he found at the center of the forest is the closest anyone has ever come to proof that Bigfoot doesn't just exist, but that he hunts after anybody who stands in his way. The coordinates Paulides reached that day don't appear in any public database. No trail marker, no campsite. No reason anyone would document this specific patch of forest. On paper, it's nothing, just trees, elevation, and silence. But here's what the paper doesn't show. When you overlay the GPS coordinates of 17 missing 411 disappearances from the surrounding region, cases spanning different years, different seasons, different victim profiles, and draw lines between each last confirmed sighting, those lines don't scatter randomly. They converge, not perfectly, not in some neat geometric shape, but they cluster, pulling inward toward a zone roughly a mile across, and the center of that zone is the clearing Paulides found that day. 17 families who never got answers, 17 cases that federal agencies refused to connect. Every single one, when you follow the geography instead of the official reports, points back to the same piece of ground. That's what Paulides was standing on when he hit the record. The recording doesn't start clean. No intro, no setup. It opens mid-movement, gravel crunching, breath already audible. Like Paulides hit record after something had already happened. Like the important moment was before the footage began, and what we're seeing is a man who needed to start documenting immediately. His breathing is too controlled, not winded from the hike. It's the kind of deliberate breath management people use when they're trying not to react to something they've already seen. Then he says it. I've been to a lot of these locations, but this one shouldn't exist. He's not saying the clearing is strange. He's saying that by every metric he uses, the pattern analysis, the topographic features that keep appearing in Bigfoot disappearance clusters, this place fits the profile so precisely it should have already been found. It should have a case attached to it. Instead, nothing. No body, no missing person, no search team. Either nobody has disappeared here yet, or whatever happened here never produced a witness to report it. The camera pans slowly. Empty woods, flat gray light filtering through the canopy. Then the sound begins. It doesn't behave like wind. Wind moves through trees in one direction. You can track it, feel it pass. This doesn't do that. It occupies the space, shifting positions without traveling between them. One moment it registers left, then behind, then somewhere forward and elevated. It pulses, it circles. It has no point of origin because the point of origin keeps relocating. Paulides keeps the camera moving, methodical. His voice drops lower. This site wasn't reported, no case file, no disappearance tied to it, and yet it aligns. He tilts the camera down, and that's when you see the first piece of physical evidence. The Bigfoot track is not a footprint in any normal sense. The instinct is to picture a large humanoid heel-to-toe impression pressed into soft mud. That's what decades of plaster casts have trained people to expect. This isn't that. This is too wide, too deep. The dimensions are wrong in every direction, not just oversized, but shaped differently. Like the weight distribution wasn't moving forward, but downward. The soil is compressed in layers, pressed inward from the edges as well as the top. The kind of compression you'd expect if something stood in that exact spot for an extended period. Not passing through, staying, settling, shifting its weight more than once in the same position. Paulides circles it without stepping closer. The edges are sharp, still defined. No moisture in the surrounding ground. No canopy overhead. No reason by any forensic logic for an impression to hold this level of detail in these conditions. This one's fresh, he says. He reaches toward it, then stops, holds his fingers above the edge, then withdraws without touching it. I don't think this was movement. I think this was positioning, not transit, not Bigfoot passing through on its way somewhere else. A chosen location, a spot selected for what it offers. Bigfoot stood in this exact place on purpose, long enough to press the earth like that. Bigfoot wasn't crossing this clearing, it was using it. Before he can say anything else, the sound returns. Closer, not louder. The volume stays constant, but the perceptual sense of proximity shifts, like distance is being renegotiated without anything crossing the intervening space. Paulides goes quiet mid-sentence. Then he finds the tree. About 7 feet up the nearest trunk, a vertical strip of bark has been removed. Not shredded, not splintered, not the horizontal scoring of bear claw marks. A clean vertical strip, roughly 8 inches wide and nearly 2 feet long, removed as a single piece in one deliberate motion. The wood beneath is exposed smoothly, the edges clean on both sides. The height is the thing that cannot be explained away. 7 feet off the ground, at the base of the strip, which means whatever reached up and pulled that bark away had its hands extended above its own head height. Even being conservative about arm-to-body ratio, whatever made this mark was standing between 8 and 9 feet tall. In this region, the tallest land animal is black bear at roughly 3 feet at the shoulder. Grizzly, in exceptional cases, reaches 7 feet standing, but grizzly doesn't operate at this elevation, and grizzly bark stripping has an unmistakable pattern, parallel horizontal scores, claw fragments, the specific radius of a bear's arc. This has none of that. Paulides moves the camera along the exposed wood slowly. Something is embedded in the inner surface, darker than the surrounding grain, pressed into the wood rather than applied to it, like something gripped this tree hard enough to leave an impression in the wood itself. I've seen references to this, he says, but never documented like this. Not other cases, references, which means this mark has appeared in accounts that were never formalized into evidence, notes in private files that never reached published findings. And now, here it is, in full resolution, at a site independently matching 17 unresolved disappearances. He backs 1 step away from the tree, and the forest goes completely silent. Not quiet the way forests get quiet when wind drops. Silent, total. Every ambient layer, insects, distant birds, the constant small movement of leaves and branches, gone simultaneously, as if someone reached into the audio track of the world and pulled it out. Paulides freezes. You hear that? There is nothing to hear. That is exactly the point. A silence that complete, that sudden, doesn't happen naturally. Animals go quiet in response to a threat, but not all at once. Not with zero ambient sound for this long. The insects alone should produce something. There is none. Several seconds pass. He doesn't move. It's not moving. A pause. It's watching. Not moving is a choice. Something decided to stop. Something big enough to leave that Bigfoot track tall enough to strip bark from 7 feet up has been circling this clearing, and it has now chosen stillness, not retreat, not approach. Observation. Bigfoot is standing in the tree line right now, watching him document its sight. He stops narrating like a researcher and starts moving like a man who has made a decision. I'm leaving. The camera bounces with faster steps. The clearing falls behind. The Bigfoot track still pressed into the earth, the tree still marked, all of it receding. For 20 seconds, the withdrawal feels like it might work. The sound doesn't immediately follow. The silence holds, which is almost worse because silence maintained during a retreat means whatever is out there is watching the departure, not reacting to it. Then the new sound comes, not circling, direct behind him, closing from the rear, not the subtle repositioning from before. This is something covering ground, moving toward him with intention. He doesn't turn. That detail needs its own moment. He hears something large closing behind him, and he does not turn around. 5 full seconds pass, camera still aimed forward, and he does not look. That is not someone startled by a random noise. That is the decision of someone who has already concluded that bringing Bigfoot into his direct visual field is not the move. The sound covers the last distance too fast, far too fast for the rate it had been approaching, and stops directly behind him, right at his back. The camera whips around, and the footage cuts. No fade, no transition, just gone, mid-rotation, at the exact moment where something would have entered the shot. Everything before the cut made it into the footage. The track, the strip bark, the circling sound, the silence, the approach. The one moment that didn't make it is the one moment that would have shown Bigfoot itself. Not an impression, not a mark. Bigfoot. Whether the camera failed, whether the footage was edited, whether something interfered at precisely that instant, none of those explanations feel adequate. The cut happens at the exact frame where Bigfoot would have been in the shot. Not a frame earlier, not a frame later. But here's where this case separates itself from every other piece of Bigfoot footage ever captured. The encounter didn't end when the recording did. Within hours of Paulides' footage cutting out, a second report came came in from the exact same GPS coordinates, a different person entirely. A day hiker who took a wrong turn on the ridge and descended into the clearing from a different angle. No knowledge of Paulides, no knowledge of the footage recorded there that same morning. No familiarity with missing 411, no interest in Bigfoot, just someone who ended up in the wrong clearing at the wrong time. They described the silence first, not a feeling of quiet, but the specific sensation of sound being removed, like the air itself was holding something. Then they saw the tree. Same height, same vertical strip, same clean edges, described from 30 feet away, never approaching, with the detail of it feeling wrong in a way they couldn't articulate. Their exact phrasing, it looked like it was made for something, not done to something. An anchor, not damage. After about 2 minutes at the clearing's edge, they described the breathing, not a sound that could be environmental, specifically breathing. Close, rhythmic. The interval belonging to something large, big chest cavity, slow resting respiratory rate. Not panicked, not excited. Calm, patient. They couldn't locate the source. They turned a full circle, scanning the tree line. Nothing visible, no movement, no silhouette between trunks. The breathing continued at the same pace from a distance that felt like 10 feet, with no visual source. They stood there, didn't move. Later they couldn't explain why. They described it as a kind of suspension, the normal calculation of something is near me and I should leave, running in the background, but not producing an output. They were watching the mark on the tree. That detail lines up precisely with what Paulides documented before the cut. The fixation, the way the Bigfoot mark pulls attention and holds it. Both people, with no knowledge of each other, described the same cognitive narrowing at the same site. Then the breathing got closer, not louder, closer, volume constant, perceived proximity increasing. The same anomalous behavior the sound exhibited in Paulides' recording. Like the rules governing how sound travels through space don't apply to Bigfoot. And then, from the edge of the clearing to their left, something broke the visual field. Not a shadow, not peripheral blur. Something physical, something with dimension that displaced the background, blocked the trunks behind it, cast its own shadow independently of surrounding trees. Tall, significantly taller than a man, wider across the upper body than anything they had reference for. Dark, not black exactly, but dark the way something is dark when it's covered in dense material that absorbs rather than reflects. The shape wrong in a way they couldn't quantify. Not monstrous, not grotesque, just wrong. It didn't move aggressively. It didn't charge. It stood at the tree line for 3 to 4 seconds, and in that time, it did something almost no other Bigfoot account ever describes. It looked at them, not the rapid, nervous assessment of an animal deciding whether to flee. This was slower, deliberate, the kind of attention that comes with full confidence in its own position. Bigfoot wasn't evaluating whether they were dangerous. It was deciding something else entirely. And then it stepped back, slowly, one step backward into the trees, its shape shrinking not by retreating rapidly, but by being selectively blocked by trunks, until the last visible thing was the upper silhouette, still upright, still watching, and then that was gone too. The breathing stopped the moment Bigfoot moved. Total silence for approximately 5 seconds. Then, like a switch, every ambient sound returned at once. Insects, wind, birds in the canopy, the whole normal soundscape restored in an instant. They ran. They made it to the main trail in under 8 minutes. Other hikers, open sky. They stopped running and tried to process what had just happened. Later, when their account was cross-referenced with Paulides' footage, when the coordinates matched exactly, the tree description matched exactly, the sequence of silence, then fixation, then approach matched exactly. One final detail emerged that neither had been prepared for. Paulides had gone back. 2 days later, alone, early morning, he wanted to cast the Bigfoot track if it was still in condition, photograph the tree in better light, get the measurements. He found the tree, same mark, still sharp at the edges, but the Bigfoot track was gone, not degraded, not collapsed by wind or rain. There had been no rain, not walked over, erased. The ground looked like ordinary forest floor, like nothing had ever stood there. The compression, the layered inward pressure, the sharp edges, all of it gone, with no physical mechanism to account for the removal. Something went back and cleaned it up. That sentence changes the entire nature of this case. This is no longer about whether Bigfoot exists. This is about behavior, an intelligence that understands the difference between evidence and no evidence, that knows what a track represents, that chose to return and remove the physical documentation of its presence. Think about what that requires. Memory of this specific patch of ground. Understanding that a track is evidence, which means understanding what it means to be documented. Surveillance of the site between visits, or a calculated assessment of when return would be safe. And the physical restraint to remove the impression cleanly without disturbing the surrounding ground, without leaving new evidence in the process of erasing old. These are not animal behaviors, not even behaviors readily attributed to great apes in captivity. These are behaviors that imply a specific cognitive architecture, the ability to think about how you appear to others and to act in the present, to control how you will appear in the future. Whatever Bigfoot is, it has been managing its own documentation for a very long time. Now we need to talk about the missing people, because that's what Paulides came here to investigate in the first place. The missing 411 phenomenon is built around specific anomalies in wilderness disappearances across North America. Victims who vanished from groups without any sound, no cry, no disturbance. Cases where search dogs lost the scent at a specific point as if the person had been lifted off the ground. Cases where victims were found in locations searchers had already checked multiple times. Cases where clothing was removed or neatly arranged. Cases where the body showed no signs of hypothermia despite conditions that should have produced it, and cases where the person was never found at all. The 17 cases converging on this clearing span 31 years. Victims aged 7 to 64. Experienced outdoorsmen, casual hikers, a child who wandered 30 feet from a campsite. Different seasons, different weather, different circumstances. The only thing they share is geography. And now, standing at the center of that geography, Paulides has footage of a fresh Bigfoot track, a stripped tree at 9-foot height, a sound that behaves like nothing in the natural world, and a physical figure at the tree line that made eye contact and stepped back in. The pattern states what Paulides won't say directly. Whatever has been operating in this territory for 3 decades has been interacting with the people who enter its range. And some of those interactions produced a different outcome than what Paulides and the hiker experienced. What determines which outcome you get? That's the question no official agency will answer. Back to the footage. Because there's more than what's in the public version. According to notes compiled before editing and distribution, several seconds after the cut were not included in what was released. Not removed because the image was unclear. Removed for a reason. The notes describe only obliquely. The note says, voice change after cut. Decision made to exclude. Voice change, not image content. His voice, and then in a separate line. He says it let him. When the raw audio was referenced in a follow-up summary, the quote attributed to Paulides is, "It let me see it," not "I saw it," not "something came into view." It let me see it. Those 4 words are the most significant statement in this entire case. More significant than the track, more significant than the bark, more significant than the second witness. Because those 4 words describe a transaction. An encounter where Bigfoot controlled what a human was permitted to experience. Bigfoot decided at the moment the camera turned to allow itself to be seen. And if that's true, everything else recontextualizes. The track wasn't left carelessly. It was placed. The bark mark wasn't incidental. It was set as an anchor. The circling sound was staging. The silence was a signal. And the second witness arriving hours later wasn't a coincidence. If Bigfoot has been operating here for 31 years without leaving recoverable evidence, it does not accidentally leave a site active after an encounter. The site was still active because it was meant to be. One more piece, small, easy to overlook. In the original recording file, there is a timestamp gap. Not visible corruption, not image distortion, a structural gap in the file's metadata, a span of time that exists as recorded but contains no data, just under 4 seconds long, too clean to be damage or dropout. The edges are precise, the kind of precision that comes from deliberate removal, 4 seconds, removed so cleanly that the footage plays through without any indication something is missing, unless you're looking at the file structure itself. Those 4 seconds sit inside the recording at a specific point, not at the end, but earlier, during the section where Paulides is examining the Bigfoot track, the moment just after, "I think this was positioning," and before the sound returns. Something happened in those 4 seconds that is not in the footage, something that somebody or something decided could not remain in the record, which either means human intervention after the fact or something far stranger about what Bigfoot is and what it can do. Neither answer is comfortable. Here is what this case established in sequence. A site matching the convergence of 17 unresolved disappearances was documented for the first time. A fresh Bigfoot track was recorded, physically inconsistent with any known animal, preserved under conditions that shouldn't have preserved it. A bark mark was documented at a height requiring a creature between 8 and 9 feet tall, with removal characteristics matching no known species. An auditory phenomenon was recorded, behaving in ways that contradict normal sound propagation. Total environmental silence occurred simultaneously. Something large approached and caused withdrawal before visual confirmation. The footage ends at the exact frame where Bigfoot would have been in the shot. A second independent witness arrived hours later at the same coordinates, described every anomalous feature in identical terms with zero prior knowledge of the first recording, and directly observed a large, upright figure that made deliberate eye contact before withdrawing. The Bigfoot track was then removed between visits with no environmental cause. Raw footage notes indicate excluded audio contains Paulides stating Bigfoot permitted itself to be seen. A 4-second gap in the file structure indicates deliberate removal of recorded content. Remove any single piece. The rest still stands. Remove all of it, and you still have 17 families, a convergent geography, and a researcher standing at the center of it saying, "This place shouldn't exist." But the truly unsettling part isn't any of that. It's what happened next. Both Paulides and the hiker described the same progression: silence first, then fixation on the Bigfoot mark, then growing awareness of being watched before any logical reason to feel watched, then the approach, then controlled, deliberate withdrawal. Neither of them describes chaos. Neither describes something out of control. Both describe something measured, moving through a sequence with pacing that implies the sequence was known in advance. Something that has done this before, many times, and knows exactly what each stage accomplishes. That is not how an undiscovered animal behaves. That is how an intelligence operates. An intelligence that has remained undiscovered despite centuries of human expansion into its territory. Trail cameras, drone surveillance, GPS is one that has been actively, deliberately maintaining that undiscovered status, until a researcher followed 17 lines on a map to a clearing that shouldn't exist, until the footage cut at the wrong moment, until a hiker took a wrong turn and saw what Paulides couldn't, and until Bigfoot decided, for the first time in anyone's documented experience, to be seen. Not caught, not glimpsed accidentally. Seen on its own terms, for a duration it chose. Then it stepped back into the trees. It erased the track. It left the mark on the bark exactly where it had placed it. And then it came back, not to leave more evidence, not to mark territory. 3 days after Paulides returned and found the track gone, a ranger on routine patrol found something at the clearing's edge that hadn't been there before. A large spruce, roughly 40 feet tall, had been uprooted and moved, placed horizontally across the entrance to the clearing, blocking it, the root ball intact and rotated cleanly from the earth. Weight estimated at over 2 tons. No storm, no wind event logged that week, no equipment access to that location, no mechanism by which a 40-foot tree gets lifted and repositioned. Bigfoot didn't just erase the evidence, it closed the site. It decided the documentation had gone far enough, that too many people had been there, that the convergence Paulides had mapped had been stood on for too long, and it shut the door. The mark is still on the bark. The tree is still across the entrance, and somewhere in those woods, something that has managed to stay hidden for 31 years, that erased its own tracks, closed a site, and was seen only because it chose to be, is still out there, still watching, still deciding who walks away.